Hi, hi everybody, welcome. My name is Jeremy Siskin. I'm the author of the Jazz Piano Fundamental Series, Solo Standards for Piano, and playing solo jazz piano. But we're not here to talk about me today. We're here with a really dear friend who I haven't seen in a long time. Somebody who I love personally, love making music with. Great drummer, Paolo Orlandi.
Orlandi.
Orlandi. It doesn't sound right when I say it, but when
Sounds
you
good
say it, it
enough.
sounds okay. Paolo's originally from the Milan area, is living in France, in the French Alps. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, French Jura Mountains. Whoa.
I don't know
Yeah.
what that means. But
Jurassic, it's the name of these mountains.
we've had the pleasure of playing together. I've had the pleasure of playing with Paolo, and of working together and teaching together through a great organization called Jazz Education Abroad. And Paolo has a brand new book out called the 3579 Syncopation Book. Do you want to say just a little bit about what the inspiration was for this book and how it came to be?
Absolutely. Well, this was like a need. I needed to have the same concept of the historical Ted Reed Syncopation, which is a book from the 50s that all the drummers I know trained on. And it's a very, very clear, uncluttered book in that helps drummer understanding syncopation. And we all pass through that. The only thing is that this book is in 4/4. So for the entire book, you play in 4/4. And I said I need the same clarity, the same concept, but in odd meters. And so I basically said, well, I can write it myself. And I started, I thought about which meters, and then the 3597 came to be, and the concept is exactly the same.
Cool. But don't go away if you're not a drummer. This book, we're going to show you how to use it for other instruments, particularly for the piano. Um, and I totally lost my train of thought, Paolo. I'm doing a really
Well, I
bad
mean,
job
there
interviewing
is
you.
no, but there is one thing that really connects to that, because if you look at that, it's for the musician written under there. And one of the things that happened a lot when I was maybe teaching some rhythmic classes, that I would bring my drum book inside a rhythm class where other musician would be there, and and pianists as well would deal with the syncopation, with the Ted Reed. And so the idea is that this book goes out for to everybody. It's not a drummer thing; should be a musician thing, hopefully.
I remember what I was going to say, which is that I know so many piano students who do great in 4/4, and then even just moving to 3/4, it's so unfamiliar. Their rhythmic vocabulary is so small in these other meters that they really struggle in 3/4, much less in 5 and 7. So I know a lot of pianists who could use this book. And I also wanted to say that I have experience using these drum books for piano. Do you know this Louis Bellson book, Modern Reading Text in 4/4? I
Absolutely.
was such a bad reader of rhythms, and somebody recommended that book to me. And it just goes through kind of really basic, like starts with half notes and whole notes, and then it moves to quarter notes. And that is literally how I learned to read rhythms decently, was going through that book. So I can vouch for the fact that drum books don't have to stay on the drums. And we want to show you today. I've asked Paolo to teach me how he would teach me out of this book as a pianist. So do you want to dive into that?
Let's do it. Well,
Okay.
the first
Are we going to
aspect of
start
this
with
book,
exercise 1 here?
yeah, why not?
Okay.
The
All
first
right.
the first big the two things you can do with this book. The most important thing, in my opinion, is that this book can be read in straight eights or in swung eight notes. So that's the first thing. You can just read it binary, or you can read it swung, because there's nothing smaller than an eight note. And so every eight note in the grid of the triplets corresponds to the last triple of the three. So the first choice you can make, it's either go to binary or swung, okay, reading. So what would you prefer, Jeremy, to do right now?
Let's demonstrate the difference.
All right.
Let's
So
start
maybe
unswung.
okay. So let's go binary, and maybe let's read the first four measure. And as a pianist, the first thing you can do, maybe very basically, is just to keep one note on the left hand, which is the beat, and just with another with the other end, not another end, but with the other end with the right, you can read the top line. As you can see, the markers down there are just there, and this is stolen from the syncopation to tell you exactly where each beat falls. So if you see that an eighth note is in between two quarters, you know where it is. And to me, that's very important.
Okay, so I'm just going to choose one note, any note, in both hands and kind of play this at first almost just like I'm a drummer. And this would probably be good sight reading practice for anybody.
Absolutely.
All right. So I'm going to try this, hopefully not embarrass myself. I'm going to choose these two notes. I had one mistake in there, but I think I got the rhythms in the first two lines.
Yes, you did. That's the first thing. I mean, it's sometimes you do that in 7, you do that in 5, and then it's already a lot of workout. And the idea is that each section starts very, very easily. At least the first page of the 5 and 7, it's just quarter notes and rests, because the idea is that you want to count until you absorb the meter.
Okay. Should I try that same thing swung?
Let's do it swung.
Okay.
Exactly. And there he goes. And already those are two things you can do.
And for pianists, I don't know if you teach drummers that way, but I work with a lot of pianists who are coming from classical or rock or pop, and to me it's so important to practice these eighth notes with no space in between and with a little bit of extra stress on the offbeat eighth. Because what you don't want to sound like, it'd be easy to read this, I'm starting on the second line. Right, like technically correct rhythmically, but awful swing feel. What my colleague calls ricky-ticky eighth notes. So it's always a good exercise, even though the rhythms are relatively easy and straightforward. Once you put that articulation in there, it makes it more interesting.
Yeah, rhythm is deep, and this one, simplicity on the written stuff can give you time to explore the depth of certain rhythms, and especially the one that you said, absolutely. So, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask, what do we do next? Let's say I'm mastering that.
What are we gonna now? Now it's time to as we do drummers, at a certain point you decide I'm gonna move which limb. So in our case we have 4, so we can move this one there, and then do something with the feet. In the case of pianist, you want to move one of the two hands. So I leave you the choice, since you are the pianist, to tell me what would be more natural to start messing around with, the left hand or the melody on the right.
Let's mess with the melody in the right, but I could imagine it going both ways. Yeah.
So I don't know if you want to take one line, and maybe let's do arpeggios on the right hand of any structure that you want to maybe study. If somebody wants to study a given chordal structure and needs to do it in a creative way and make things more difficult.
Okay, so I'm gonna keep it simple. I'm worried about getting embarrassed, so I'm just gonna take a C triad, and I'm gonna go up the C triad. So just for you viewers at home, all I'm doing is I'm gonna ascend one note, every single note of the right hand, and then when I get to the top, I'm gonna start descending. So let's see how that goes. It's a little bit tricky because there's a different number of notes in every measure, so it's not gonna come out even, right? So let's see. So it'll be. All right, my brain is starting to fire a lot now. I didn't have to think too much those first two exercises. It's getting more tricky.
Yeah, well, it's so great to hear it though from my point of view, because what I was like, imagining when writing, I was like, exactly that's what I want this to be. Very, very, malleable. Is that a right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I could definitely imagine doing this with scales is maybe even more interesting than arpeggios. If it's any scale that you want, I could totally see that being a really valuable exercise.
Yeah, don't leave the harmonic decisions up to me. That's what I do.
And if I wanted to change the bottom part, like I might do something more regular. I might like practice like a waltz stride piano, and then. That would be valuable too.
You know how this changes perspective. Now you don't have to think like for us. I remember we were teaching together one class. I remember that, and we were saying how certain elements of the drums correspond to certain things that you do with the hands on the piano. So I remember you saying that we were teaching together GAA. I do remember.
Wow.
I can. But in any case, that's what we do. You know, sometimes for example, our hi hat is what you can say. You know, you keep it. For example, one thing now you did a waltz, but you could do, for example, dotted quarters on the left. Okay, which is a structure that fills perfectly the three beats. So in that case, you would have something that it's a little different because it's symmetric. So it would put your rhythmic reading. You would challenge that from another perspective because now you have a rhythmic symmetric structure on the
okay. So
left hand.
just to clarify, then we're not reading the bottom line anymore. We'd replace that with dotted quarters. So instead of bum bum bum, now I'm maybe going 1 2, but I'm still gonna read the top line, and I could do. Starting to get interesting.
And then it gets really interesting. Exactly. And and just as a reference, just a thing to say, sorry, but those bottom line, what would be like an F on the bottom line there, those are just markers. They are not meant to be part that you read. That's really like
got it. I see.
So you can ignore them until you can see where the rhythm falls, and then honestly, the part that counts is the top part. Those are only markers for easiness of read at the beginning.
Got it. Another thing that it strikes me we could do with that top line is make that totally free, like improvise in the top line. And you could start with just like, okay, we're in C major, use any note of the C major scale, or C Lydian if you want to do that. And then that, adds that element of creativity. So I'm improvising. Which is just kind of fun in a different way. It gets me playing rhythms I wouldn't usually play.
Right, exactly. And you see, by doing that, and I guess that's the twofold thing. You do that, you pass through 8 methods in half an hour, you're counting 3 for half an hour.
Yeah, you're always making your rhythm more solid. And I'm guessing you would suggest always doing this with the metronome?
Yes.
Yeah,
I mean, I was trying to articulate something. I was like, no. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right. And what I have fun doing sometimes is to, now you can program all sorts of things. And sometimes
right.
I put different claves, and not necessarily to be hard. I just read very simply, maybe with the snare in our case, which could be your left hand. So maybe you can do it only with one end, but maybe I put like a different clave programmed on my metronome. So a different type of subdivision, maybe you put only the first 2 beats of the tree just to challenge yourself. Or maybe you put the 1 and 3rd. Moving the metronome and playing with the metronome in this context can be very, very effective.
Great. And so can we translate this also to tunes? So we're talking, so far we've just been staying all in one key center.
Right.
What if we wanted to move through and, not be so harmonically stagnant?
Right. Well, I'll ask you to pick a tune, maestro.
Oh, I get to pick?
Don't let the drummer call the tunes.
That's it. Let's choose There Will Never Be Another You. Just to get it in everybody's ears. So in that case, what should I do? What do you want me to do with my two hands? You're the teacher here.
All right. So first thing, whenever I do that, I try to sing my melody in the given meter to make sure that everything works fine. And so I just did that to myself because otherwise.
Right, and I guess we should say for the audience that we would that tune is usually in 4/4. Here we're pretending like it's in 3/4. Instead of 4 beats per measure, we would pretend like it has 3 beats. So. But we're just going to be working with the changes here.
Right, maybe we can put the changes on the line, and so we can read the changes. So the left hand can play the changes with that. I don't know if that makes sense. Is this too hard?
Oh, so I'm like comping.
There he goes.
So maybe I would do that and improvise in the right hand.
Or you can improvise, or imagine that you are...
playing the melody?
Right, or playing like almost if you were comping somebody like a singer or a soloist, and you're comping with two hands, but...
but that rhythm. Okay.
Right.
1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3. That's tough. I don't usually comp with that many eighth notes in a row, so I'm trying to make it melodic, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, I give you permission to erase some of those or not to play them, or maybe just to, in between the lines, just go and pick one that make more sense. Again, otherwise you could play, what can you do with the right hand there? Maybe you can improvise on the changes with the right hand using that rhythm.
Yeah, totally. So 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 2. Making up the rhythm. That's tricky, especially I was playing the dotted halves in my left hand.
So you made it harder for you right there.
Yeah, a little bit. I could also... It's probably a better place to start.
Right, but you see, like, when you have, I'm lucky to have, somebody like you here demonstrating all the things that you can do. It's like all the different places where you can go. But the one thing that I wanted to have is something that from a very simple line can be bent into very tricky stuff, And each one of us is the chef there. You decide that you want to really make yourself miserable for 1 hour, you do it. Or otherwise you don't, and you just you stay there and you work on your swing pronounces.
Yeah.
So it's very, like, the idea is to have this manual ready for action. You have any other ideas that is scooping up, Maestro, in your brain? I see you reading.
Always. I could imagine trying to put that in the left hand and keeping an ostinato like in the right hand, like improvising in the left. And yeah, I do like a simple at least. Hard, but pretty interesting, pretty fun. I can imagine trying like a harder ostinato. What if it were? And like really working on coordinating against an ostinato, like I think is super fun.
That's only think about that is actually difficult from my point of view as a drummer. How you guys can do that?
Well,
Crazy.
yeah, and if you're like actually playing the changes and keeping the ostinato going, but hey, if you want to be Brad Meldau, like I bet Brad could do that immediately.
Right, 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 right.
So just
Well,
like great for coordination.
yeah, exactly, exactly. It's and one thing that I also this was derived from some of the classes that I was, sometimes as drummer we're like, you are the rhythm expert, teach rhythm classes, which is not necessarily always true, but sometimes, even having a simple drum, a hand drum, and just do some coordination just with the rhythm sometimes, that goes for all musicians, and it's a type of
Yeah,
different
yeah.
thing that can be done and needs to be done, because many times the physical part of like producing rhythm, it's an important aspect of all of us, all musicians, bass players, pianists, and so even doing just like this very basically pa pa uh, uh, and then changing only with one sound without necessarily going crazy with the notes at times can be something that can help, especially if you take the 5 or the 7 or the 9.
Yeah.
The 9, I
Yeah.
wrote it, I have fear myself in dealing with that,
I
because
hear you. I hear
the
you.
9, I in some, just to expand a little bit on the book, on some of the 9 exercise, for example, I put like a subdivision so people can maybe see it as a 3-3-3 or 5-4 or a 4-5. So in some of those more
Oh yeah,
complicated, if
yeah.
you want, unusual, I try to give that, and so I divided the reading into those measures. uh, but for example, that one, I wrote it, but I cannot do it that easily, 9, it's
Takes a
and
lot of
even some
focus.
of the others, it depends what you want to do with it. With the 9th, I'm still stuck at very basic level,
Yeah.
start putting my feet differently, or what do you do with the left hand? It's gonna be a waltz with a bar every 3 cycles, or a 4+5, and
Right.
good luck with
Yeah.
that.
There's a reason we did the very first exercise together.
Exactly.
Yeah, cool. Well, I got a lot of shedding to do. Paolo, do you want to tell everybody where they can get this book?
Well, it's on my web store. So it's Paolo Orlandi Podia dot paoloorlandi.podia.com. But also there's a landing page you can access from my Instagram, and then and from my Facebook. It's all, if you find it on Podia, then you'll find it. Maybe we can put like all the stuff in there,
Well, yeah, we'll definitely put all the links in the description.
on
And
the
you
links,
said that
and
maybe you
there's
could come up with a coupon code for us.
there is a coupon ready for you guys, so it will be written there, for sure. And it's available, and it's a PDF, so it can be read on any type of support. You can even print it out if you want to be
Nice.
eco-friendly.
I love it. And yeah, let me just repeat that I learned so much from working with a drum book on the piano. It really changed my life. So I think I can give this kind of practice a huge endorsement.
Great.
Um,
Well,
Paolo, thank you so much, man.
thank you, Jeremy. It was
So
great to
lovely
see
to
you
see you.
again. We have to
Yeah,
meet one day, huh? In person. Like, this
definitely.
ocean is too far.
I've got some ideas, so I'm
All
coming for
right.
you. Um,
Excellent.
Paolo, thank you, my friend.
Ciao, everybody, and thanks for listening. Thanks for reading the book.